Burnout podcast episode 104. Hey, therapist. Welcome back to the program. Today, I am talking about a topic I talked about last year. Sometimes I wonder what we're going to say about the 2020s. I feel like when 2020 hit, so first of all, a little story. So it was 2020. And in 2020, I was going to turn 40. And so for my 40th birthday, I was going to have dinner in Cinderella's castle with my kids. And I was really excited about doing so. And we all know what happened in March of 2020. So I didn't get to go have my dinner in Cinderella's castle. And it's a small drop in the bucket compared to what many people experienced in the pandemic, including death, persecution. I mean, throw whatever you want in the dumpster fire that happened in 2020. But we are in 2026, and I feel like it's it's like not stopping. Like, I know we're not in a pandemic. I know. And so I was looking up, how are people already talking about this time right now? And they're calling it a polycrisis, a crisis of multiple things and affecting the world. So not only the political things that we've seen, the racial reckoning that we have seen globally, economic change, the pandemic. There are so many layers that I think we've experienced. AI is a huge piece that has disrupted not only our field as therapists, but how people are working now. And so I think this time will be something we look back on as a point of crisis, yes, and I'm just curious about how it will all play out in the course of our lives, but it will be a point in time. And if one thing is certain, something will change, which is weirdly hopeful for me that we won't be living in this era because people and things only go through so much turmoil in a lifetime. I hope. Maybe I'm wrong. I'm not sure. And I know for therapists, holding all of that, right? Everyone has been going through a polycrisis for 6 years. And even before that, I think so much, so much. And I think it is so much to consider because, and I didn't want to do this episode at the start of January because there's all that like get your new calendar and new year you stuff, which I feel like falls pretty flat. Although I do like New Year energy. Sometimes it can be helpful for me, even psychologically, to get some things done and just kind of refresh my mind and how I'm thinking in some ways. So part of me likes a little bit of a transition period and an existential crisis, which I'm having less of, which is interesting. Interesting. So I think we can't talk about our calendars and why we feel so overwhelmed without naming what's going on in the world. Because every day it's played out on therapy couches, including mine now, because I am a therapist again. And I know that many of us have been bracing for years, have been holding on for years, thinking like, if I can only get to maybe May or the summer for me where I am taking a legit sabbatical, which includes a sabbatical from this podcast. So I didn't podcast last week because my schedule was legit crazy. But I'm thinking through like my cadence for podcasting, even like if I'm not going to make a week, I said at the top of the year I was going to podcast 2 to 3 times a month. And I am starting that. I'm starting to consider the rhythms that I can sustain in this season until my sabbatical comes in June when I take a break from work, from my school-based work that I do, and also this podcast. And so I'm just thinking of ideas of what that looks like too on the other side of this. Part of me has the thought of like, will it continue? That's a valid question for me to consider. I think it will in some capacity. I am just still thinking through that and what that looks like for me. I know that therapists and anyone cannot brace, cannot hold, cannot be in nervous system dysregulation forever because our bodies have a certain capacity. Our brains have a certain capacity. And I've talked about this many times on the podcast, but I worked with brain injury survivors. I still work with brain injury survivors. And in schools, I work with people with, I say different brains or neurodiverse brains. And When I first saw, so going back to brain injury survivors, when first would see a survivor, many times they wouldn't come to me until they had been to their doctor. They had been to potentially a brain injury specialist as well, like a PT or someone like that. And they had tried the calendars. They tried doing the rehab activities, which are helpful. I'm not minimizing that those professionals and that work is not helpful because it is. It is helpful. But it doesn't solve the whole picture of nervous system dysregulation. I think they still came to the reckoning that I will not be the same. And I think for folks in burnout, they also reckon with this truth. When can I function like I used to? When can I feel like I can do life like I used to? And I think the reality is like their nervous system couldn't tolerate their life anymore. And their recovery felt like I just can't do anything anymore at all. And while it's not as dramatic for therapists in burnout, I feel like the unique flavor of our burnout, which comes with not only feelings of overwhelm, feeling overscheduled, overtaxed, and then having our brains and bodies pretty much tell us, like, we're not doing that anymore and we'll take you out. Our bodies do that. They're doing what they're supposed to do. So if you have suffered from health conditions, from stress, from medical difficulties, for me, it came out in the form of panic attacks and also gaining 30 to 40 pounds because my body had probably so much cortisol that it was asking me to stop pushing so much. Recovery from burnout, I haven't found a 5-step system that works for everyone yet. The same thing was true in brain injury recovery. My survivors would come to me and it wasn't the one thing they did. It was continuing to look, continuing to listen to their body, to seek out new things that might help. Okay, we haven't tried this. Let's try that. So continuing on their path was how they found recovery. For me, I was just afraid and running and looking for a fix. And I really tried to fix my practice. And I didn't want to reckon with the fact that I could no longer provide as much therapy to as many clients. I tried cutting down my caseload, thinking that would be part of the answer. Got a million certifications. I didn't get a million, but I got 4. A new niche, a new strategy, website changes. I never found a 5-step program. I didn't find a quick pivot. It was slowly untethering to the things that my body couldn't hold anymore. And I'm still doing that. I'm still figuring this out 5 years later, and I'm helping those that are listening to me along on that journey of figuring out what is the best next step, not this is the path, this is how you need to walk this because it's different for everybody. It just is. So today I want to talk with you about when you are overwhelmed, overbooked, and you cannot see any other way of doing your life. And it scares you. You look at your calendar and you just don't know how you're going to do it. You do not know how you're going to do Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday. And Friday might be your day off and you don't even know how you're going to get there. What I have come to know is that we need to do 2 things. First is noticing what is depleting you, figuring that out. Not everything we can cut. I've talked about this a lot before, but it's not like I can just not get my children to school. It is a depleting experience. And there are many things that I can do, like do some breathing in the morning, which I don't always do. I don't always have time to wake up and, do a routine. I can't change the ages of my kids and that it takes 2 hours to get my kids ready for school because they're in 2 different schools. And that's just my life. And that's the life task that I have. If we're thinking of like a Jungian life task, one of those is to be a mother right now for me and to mother my children, to raise them, make sure they have food. All of those things are part of what I have to do. That is my job right now. I also need to make a certain amount of income so that those said children also have that food and they have the resources and the things they need. I think we forget when we consider what we've committed to and what we continue to commit to, and you have a choice there. I think a lot of times we forget that we have a choice in our lives because we've just done it this way. Because many of the people that I work with, either in consulting or that write into me from the podcast, struggle with boundaries, struggle with saying no, struggle with referring out clients, struggle with finding where they can restructure things. And all of it feels so overwhelming that it's just easier in our minds sometimes to continue to meet the need, continue to show up as the therapist, see the clients that deplete us every week that we feel ineffectual to help. And it's not the client, it's, I think, the therapist feeling stuck in the work. This was me too. Feeling like I didn't have options and I didn't even see them. Like me now can see I had choices that I could have made, but me then did not see that. Potentially like referring that client out. I have consulted, I've done a lot of things. Maybe it's time to consider graduation. And I think that is not something that's available to most people to consider. So I want you to do this. If you are driving, do this mentally in your mind space because I don't want you to crash. If you have the availability to look at your calendar right now, I want you to look at your calendar and just sit with it. Just sit with it. This isn't a woo thing, but if you want to get woo, go ahead and do it. Just really look at it. Look at the different things that are standing out to you. And I would just like you to consider what doing this every week is costing you. What is the cost of showing up to do what you're doing? What are you dreading every week? As I mentioned previously, there's things that you cannot control all the time, right? For me, my children, if you have aging parents, if you have financial stress, you need a job. You need to still work as a therapist unless you're in or you're trying to get out of therapy and work another job. I'd have you think of like some things are not changeable. We can't change some things in our calendar, in our schedule 100%. But there are some things that we can and some things that are optional. And even if we don't consider them as optional, we could. We could look at each client. Do I need to see them in therapy? Do they need to be seen? Have they met treatment goals? Is there an obligation or a task that is optional that I can stop doing? Do I need to consider a cap on the people that I see per day so I don't feel totally depleted at the end of the day? Another great thing to think about the amount of work we're doing. Oftentimes with brain injury survivors, they would return to work and they would think, okay, like I can just go right back to work and I would offer them consider a shorter day, 2 to 4 hours perhaps of working time, and then work your way up to see if you can still do that. If that's something that you can do. And so when you're in active burnout, like you are depleted at the end of the day, you need to lay down, your body is forcing you to take naps, those types of things. I would consider a shorter workday if at all possible, or even like breaking your workday up if you have that flexibility into a morning and then like taking a nap in the middle of the day, trying to recharge a little bit and then doing the back half of your day, for example. If nothing changes, and this is like a come to Jesus moment here, and bring the South out. What is going to happen to your nervous system in 6 months? What about your body? What are the effects that this level of stress is going to have on your body? What about your patients? And I think of my patients because I know for a lot of clinicians, they have feelings of resentment and anger that comes up towards their clients. And most of the folks that I've worked with have never outwardly said this to their clients, including myself. I did not yell at a client, snap at a client. But internally, I had those thoughts. And we all have those thoughts, by the way. We're human. It is normal to have these thoughts and be frustrated and have reactions and be triggered and have, countertransference. That is part of the work that we, look at that, say, what part is that of me just being a human and having my own human experiences and reactions? And that's really normal. So I need to maybe just process that naturally or do consultation. So you've explored those things. We are beyond that. We are beyond that. You're taking it home, you're perseverating, things of that nature is happening. And when that happens, our patience wears thin. And then for our own lives, our children, our partners, our friends, our loved ones get a person in their lives that is less patient, that is more angry, and less able to have emotional availability. Every yes, every continued appointment has a cost. And that comes out in a lot of the ways that I just said. So the thing I would have you do is relatively simple in concept, yet difficult in how we live it out. Pruning what we can, taking back what we can, and in every area of our life that we can. So, not just with clinical work, not just with your home life, also with your social obligations, with the obligations that you have to like your animal, all of that. I can't feed the dog in the morning because there's too much going on with me getting my kids ready for 2 hours in the morning. So, someone else needs to do that. Like, I need to teach a kid to do that. Have my partner do that, all those things to think about. And just this question, where can you do less of everything? Also thinking about the less in your sensory inputs. So a lot of times when I worked with my survivors again, I would think about sensory input. And for someone who's in nervous system dysregulation or inching towards there, consider that you might be having too many inputs. And the biggest one right now for everyone on the planet, essentially, if you have a phone, is that device. So the information that you take in, maybe always needing to have media playing, like a podcast, just not my podcast because it's awesome. So you can listen to, like, we're going to cut other ones, but just not mine. Media, right, that you're consuming or just scrolling. Like just looking at random crap online, on socials, all the things. Really trying to titrate that, limit that, because that does tax your brain cognitively. There's a direct line to cognitive burnout and overwhelm and scrolling on your phone. I think we know that by now. We know that. But we're like, oh, it doesn't apply to me because it's addictive. Most of us are addicted to some degree in our phone. But gamifying it can be helpful. If like, hey, maybe I just try to do like 10 minutes less today, 20 minutes less today, 30 minutes less today, and try to help yourself kind of take that back. Some examples that some of the people that I've worked with have done is fewer evening sessions. So maybe they can do something that's restorative for them in the evenings. Drop one non-essential obligation, simplifying their meals, like making sure like maybe they prepped like some lunch, some snacks so that they have nutrition throughout the day and have some energy. Delegating some home tasks, not doing, I had one therapist I work with and they were like, oh yeah, I have like about 5 or 6 trainings I need to do too. And I'm like, how long have you had those that you needed to do? Oh, like a year. I was like, so we're just going to take that right off the list. We're not doing any trainings or certifications right now because you don't have bandwidth. I would add that doing less does not mean you care less. I'm going to say it again. Doing less does not mean you care less. In fact, it's the very thing that can help you care more by protecting your capacity and honoring it. It just is what it is. And many times I said this with my survivors as well. They would just want to do more and they couldn't. And I'm just like, if you need some compassion, please borrow it from me because you can't do that. It sounds to me from what you're saying, you're not able to do that. Like there's a severe cost to you working more or providing that for your friend, whatever the thing they were doing. So I would say if you're booked and overwhelmed, start by noticing first. Prune what you can. You don't need a 5-step system. You just need some relief. Even small relief can be helpful. And really it can start with doing one less thing that you think you have to. Okay, so I hope that you have enjoyed this remake of Overbooked and Overwhelmed. I did it last year if you want to hear that version. I don't even know what I said, but I think it resonates because so many of us have a life that feels so full that we just feel like we need to escape it when we don't know what we need to run from until we have more space. That's what I know to be true. All right, my friends, I will talk with you in a couple weeks or maybe next week. I'm not sure if I'm able to get my guest on that I want to have a guest on by then, but I'm in this mind frame of like creating things because I'm running my group, Leaving the Chair right now. So if you didn't get into Leaving the Chair this time, look out for future offerings likely in the fall because again, I told you I'm off in the summer. So I'm not doing anything at all. But it's just wonderful to work with people and hear the themes that are coming up. So certainly feel like you can reach out to me and let me know. I read all your messages, even if I can't get back to everyone. So that's info@drjenblanchett.com. I'm also on LinkedIn. So find me there and have a good one. Bye.